The NFL playoffs are here. Today marks the first game of the NFL postseason, and I'm really excited because what I'm going to be doing, I know that the fantasy football season is now behind us, but I'm going to be giving you 4 pick'em players that you should be choosing on Prize Picks. I'm going to give you whether you should go over or under on whatever respective stats those players have, and I'm going to do a rapid fire game predictions for every single matchup at the end of the video, so be sure to stay tuned for that. The first one you're going to choose is going to be McConkey from the Los Angeles Chargers. You are going to select over on him having 75.5 receiving yards versus the Houston Texans, and here is why. In his last 7 games, he's had 6 games of 80 plus receiving yards, and when you look at his matchup versus the Houston Texans, they are a bottom half team when it comes to receiving yards allowed to opposing wide receivers. And when you look a little bit further, McConkey is the 7th best wide receiver in win rate versus man coverage at 41%, and that number increases to 52% versus zone coverages. The Texans play a lot of nickel formation, which has led to them playing 70% of their coverages in zone defenses. And in this matchup, we see that the Chargers are even favored to win on the road, and they are favored by 3.5. When you look at this screenshot here from RotoViz, it shows McConkey's effectiveness when he's playing bottom 15 defenses, and he's favored on the road. You can see here that he averages a staggering 94 receiving yards and 6.5 receptions, making his selection of going over on the receiving yards an easy decision. And lastly, Adam Schefter posted this on X, showcasing how Houston is a bottom team in point differential. I expect not only the game script, but this matchup to be one that favors McConkey easily going over on this prop of 75.5 receiving yards. And the next player you're going to be choosing and going over on is going to be AJ Brown versus the Green Bay Packers, easily going over on the half touchdown that he has right now on Prize Picks. And when you look at this screenshot, you can see here that AJ Brown ended the season with 3 straight games with 1 touchdown. And what's important to notice here is that in this matchup, Jair Alexander is not going to be playing. Not that it mattered much, because when you look at this game from week 1, AJ Brown did great, even with Jair Alexander matching him up most of the game. And you can see also that the Packers actually are a defense that favor zone coverage, and this is actually good news because AJ Brown feasts off of zone coverages. You can see here that he actually ranks 13th in win rate versus man coverage at 38.8%, and that number increases to 43.2% versus zone coverage, leading AJ Brown to be the 2nd ranked wide receiver in beating zone coverages in 2024. We're going to actually sit on this RotoViz screenshot for a second here. This screenshot showcases the splits in and out when the Eagles are favored at home by at least 4.5, and the numbers are pretty interesting here. You can see here that when the Eagles are favored, AJ Brown averages 67.7 yards per game, and when they're not favored, he averages 96 yards per game. But then we look at over here, the touchdowns are near identical. The averages are near 0.5, and I think that's going to be the X factor, because I believe that with Jair Alexander out, with AJ Brown's effectiveness of being able to beat zone coverages, and I believe that the game plan that the Eagles will face will be one very similar to what they did 2 years ago. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because a few years back, when the Eagles were actually making their run to the Super Bowl a few years back, Hurts was actually coming off a concussion injury, and his first game was a playoff game versus the Giants, and the Eagles made a very concerted effort to make sure that they actually sprinkled him in the passing game early and often. And the first pass he had was actually a deep ball to Devontae Smith. All that to say, AJ Brown not only is someone that I think will get utilized because they want to get Hurts involved and confident in the passing game, but he also ranks 1st in receiving EPX. With the game plan I believe that Philadelphia will have to go along with the depletion that the secondary currently has for Green Bay, AJ Brown will be an easy over on the 0.5 touchdowns for this week. Hey, we have 2 more players as well as my rapid fire predictions to go over, but before we do so, most of you are not already subscribed, so do me a solid. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're getting value. Let's go over these last few players. And this next player is going to be Nico Collins going up against the Los Angeles Chargers. Currently, Prize Picks has him at 87.5 yards, and you are going to select the under, and here is why. Despite him being the wide receiver 23 in fantasy this season, averaging 17 points a game, the last 4 games that Nico Collins has played, he's actually averaged only 43 yards in those matchups. Now, the thing is, he's facing the Los Angeles Chargers. They are a team that has only allowed 77 7 receiving yards to an individual player in 2 of the last 5 games. And this Los Angeles Chargers defense is also the 8th best in fewest passing yards allowed. And I want to show you just one more thing here from RotoViz. You can see here these stats that he only averages 6 receptions and 17.5 receiving yards when he's at home, not favored versus a really good secondary, versus the other end when he averages 7 receptions and 90.7 yards when he's favored and playing at home. So all this to say that Nico Collins will be an easy under for 87.5 yards for your Prize Picks play. And this last player that you are going to select is going to be Bo Nix, going over on 227.5 passing yards versus the Buffalo Bills. When you look at this matchup, you can see that Buffalo is a heavy favorite in this matchup with a spread of 47.5. Now, in the last 5 games, the Buffalo Bills have actually allowed a total of 302 passing yards to opposing quarterbacks, and this actually bodes well for Bo Nix because he's actually 6th in pass attempts, he's actually 3rd in deep ball attempts, and he's 7th in air yards. Now, I want to actually focus on one specific stat, and that's going to be the game script. You can see here that he ranks 9th among all quarterbacks, and what this value means, the 2.23, is that the positive value shows that he actually often plays in the lead, which actually shows that this margin is actually relatively tight to what the average is. And because I believe that the game script is actually going to work in a negative way for the Denver Broncos, it's going to force him to have to pass the ball, which I believe will bode well for Bo Nix to easily hit that 227.5 passing yards in this matchup. Here is my rapid fire predictions for the first week of the playoffs. The first matchup, we have the Chargers on the road versus the Houston Texans, and I'm going to go with the Chargers. Despite them being on the road, I love Jim Harbaugh, I love Justin Herbert, and Houston actually has been a team that unfortunately has been underperforming, especially with the sophomore slump that we saw with CJ Stroud. I believe that Houston will unfortunately not be able to put up enough to beat the Chargers. Next one, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Baltimore Ravens. I love these divisional matchups. I have Baltimore winning handsomely, 38-20. Pittsburgh has been on a 4-game losing streak as they get into the postseason. I believe it'll be too much Lamar and too much Baltimore for these Pittsburgh Steelers. Next, I have Green Bay versus Philadelphia. I have Philadelphia winning 30-24. Listen, I think that Philadelphia will sprinkle in a lot of Jalen Hurts early and often. That way they can then get Saquon Barkley to finish off these Green Bay Packers. And with the Packers dealing with so much injuries, I think it'll be too much for them to overcome, thus having them an early exit in the postseason. Next, we have Denver versus Buffalo. I love Bo Nix and the great season that he has had, but I believe it'll be too much for the young quarterback going into Buffalo, and Josh Allen will continue his MVP candidacy run with a great performance, putting the Buffalo Bills over the Denver Broncos. Next, we have Washington versus Tampa Bay. I think this is going to be the game I'm going to be looking forward to the most. This will be a fun matchup between the Washington Commanders as well as the Buccaneers. This will be a shootout in my opinion, and I have the Washington Commanders winning 38-35 on the road, upsetting the Buccaneers. Jalen Daniels will have a strong debut. He's led this team to 12 wins, and the magic will continue for at least one more week as they upset the Buccaneers. And lastly, we have the Minnesota Vikings going up against the Los Angeles Rams. The venue changed because of the unfortunate fires that have been happening here in LA, and I have Los Angeles winning, galvanizing everyone in LA with a upset victory versus the Minnesota Vikings, who are favored on the road. Though Minnesota has improved this year with Brian Flores on their defensive end, I believe that the Los Angeles Rams will be too much for this defense, considering that I'm not a big fan of how their point differential has been relatively tight all year long. Hey guys, thank you for making it to the very end of the video. Really appreciate it. Let me know your predictions below in the comments, and if you got value in this video, do me a solid. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and be sure to stay tuned. I'll be dropping some more videos around Dynasty as we get ready for that upcoming season. And as always, best of luck to you in your matchups. In the meantime, take care. God bless. Peace.